No matter what, people will commit to misunderstanding you. What's most important is your commitment to understanding yourself. Hello, you guys. My name is Nkirka Madiani, known as NK, and welcome back to Misunderstood. Finding her again. Today, we are talking about wellness practices to significantly improve your life. This is a topic that has been on my mind for a while, and I know I say that for most of the episodes, but of course, every single episode is inspired by something I am thoughtfully thinking about in that moment of time. Those are why I'm so passionate about the episodes I bring to you guys, and I want to keep it that way. And today, we are talking all about wellness. And wellness is such a lofty word. When I grew up, I always thought that wellness meant simply working out and eating well, and that was it. But there's so much more to wellness. And as an adult, I'm really learning what wellness actually means and how that applies to my life to actually make my life feel better, to actually make me feel whole. And I think this is such an important conversation to have as adults because there are so many other factors in our life that we have to tend to, and oftentimes we forget about us. We succumb to so many other people before we even think about what we need. Of course, as many of you guys know, this podcast Misunderstood is about improving your life. It is about making sure that you have yourself, you take care of yourself, you are your most important entity. We drive that point home almost every single episode. So I'm very looking forward to taking you guys through these wellness habits that I prioritize in my life. Maybe you guys already do these. Maybe this will help you get inspired to formulate your own wellness routine. But before we get into this episode, take some time right now to rate this show, Misunderstood, 5 stars on Apple and Spotify. It is a very important step to ensuring that we continue on with weekly episodes. Rating the show is a free and easy way to show support to this podcast. It means a lot to me to get your guys' feedback, to read all the messages, read all the comments, read all the reviews. It really helps me continue to do this project that I love so much. And I'm very, very happy to do it. So if you have not already, please take some time right now to rate this show, Misunderstood, 5 stars on both Apple and Spotify. Thank you so much. The word wellness, once again, feels like a lofty word in a lot of contexts. I grew up thinking truly that being well just meant to not get sick and to work out regularly. But there's so much more to wellness that I really wanted to unpack today. So we're going to get some of the obvious ones out of the way. We're first going to talk about physical wellness. So for physical wellness, the first item I wanted to talk about is going to your doctor's checkups. We all are supposed to do an annual physical, of course, but whenever you feel unwell, it is important to go seek help. And I know a doctor will also tell you that if you're experiencing any type of symptom for less than a week, you really have to let your body ride it out, which is pretty much what I tend to do. I had a pretty bad sore throat 2 weeks ago, and I was freaking out because I immediately thought it was strep throat. I've never had strep, but my throat hurt so bad that I really thought I had strep throat, and I knew in my head that I had to wait it out for at least 5-6 days. Then I ended up going to urgent care because I was just nervous. I didn't have strep, but I did have a viral infection. Outside of that, doctor's appointments are very, very crucial to your overall physical health. Of course, doing your OBGYN appointments every year. Blood panels are also a very important thing to go get done. I believe every 6 months to a year. But a few years ago when I did my blood panel, it was showing that I was semi-deficient in iron. And since then, I've just been very cognizant about making sure I am upping my iron intake through the foods I eat and the vitamins I take, which has overall just helped me feel so much better. Next, I wanted to talk about your diet. I personally do not like the word diet. I don't diet, but I say diet in terms of nutrition intake. The 70-30 rule is essentially you are consuming 70% whole foods, very clean food, and then 30% are more, quote, junk foods, or essentially any food that's not a whole food. As an adult, it is definitely not very realistic to think that we can just eat whole foods all the time. Life is about balance. I think everyone should preach this. It's not about sacrificing or withholding yourself from experiencing great, yummy foods, travel experiences where you're, of course, eating whatever you want. You should be doing that. But 70% of the time, you should be leaning into healthy meals, very clean meals, because that is what internally helps you feel balanced. And specifically, items that are high in B12, D3, K2, vitamin C. These are all so essential to the organs in your body, working to keep you healthy and strong. These items also play a very big role in your nerve health and your cognitive function. What you eat fully impacts how you think and your mental state as well. Next, I want to talk about sleep. Sleep is very important to me, and it's been increasingly more important to me as an adult. I'm 31 years old, and I joke and say that I feel like a grandma because I crave going to sleep around 10:30, 11 every single night. It doesn't even matter where I am, even if I'm on a vacation, I want sleep. I do not stay up late. Whenever I do, I just hate the next day, and it just makes me feel very groggy and not myself. This has been so huge in my wellness routine to have a little more discipline, to take myself to bed at a respectable hour so that I'm getting at least 8 hours of sleep. I actually do get 8 hours of sleep most nights, and I'm very, very proud of that. Next, I want to talk about a topic that I really wanted to spotlight in an episode, which is sober curiosity and my journey with alcohol as a whole. I have talked about a little bit of my alcohol journey, but this was many, many episodes ago now. So I really wanted to bring this conversation back to the forefront because this is something that has been really weighing heavily on me, specifically in the last few months. So I am essentially borderline wanting to embark on my sober curious journey. And this has been a very thoughtful conversation within myself for a while to really understand why I feel the way I do about alcohol currently. I have done dry Januaries in the past. I've also taken many pockets of time throughout the year in the past few years to just not drink because I just don't feel like it. That has always made me feel so much better. I'm seeing how as I get older and just what I like to do in my lifestyle, drinking is not the forefront of what I do. It's nowhere close to it, which is where I've always wanted to be. But I think when I'm in social situations, I do still feel that pressure to drink just because other people are drinking. And truly growing up and maturing is realizing that you do not have to drink just because everyone else is. You can do whatever the fuck you want, of course. That is just becoming increasingly more apparent every single time I am in social situations. Also, I don't drink that much when I drink. I really don't, but anytime I ever have more than 3 drinks, I absolutely regret it. I am so hungover the next day and I feel really sad and I feel so depressed. For me, the alcohol wasn't worth it then if I have these lasting effects after the fact. And I have said I love drinking here and then. I love a nice cheeky cocktail. I love a cute glass. I love to be in a pretty environment with my friends. I want to feel like I'm bodily taking care of myself. And unfortunately, every single time that I drink more than a few drinks, I just don't feel great. Lessening my alcohol intake as a whole has been something that I really, really want to do. It impacts so many other things in your body. I really wanted to be honest about that and say this has been on my heart for a while, and we'll see how the year goes with my alcohol journey. Next, I want to talk about joint health. Every time I think about the word joint health, even though it is literally the scientific term for your joints, I don't know. It just makes me feel like I'm aging myself, but I'm not. We should be thinking about our joint health. It's very important to think about our joints because they are literally propping us up every day. They are the reason why we're able to walk and sit down and move around and exercise and live an active lifestyle. And for me, I am a very active person, so it is becoming more and more apparent that I need to focus on my joint health. So I actually take certain vitamins for my joint health now. I started doing this after I had surgery in February. I do feel bodily better. Maybe it's a placebo, but the Joint supplements are also teamed with the fact that I'm doing strength training literally almost every single day. Again, because my PT and surgeon told me to. But even when I'm fully healed, I'm going to continue that discipline in my strength training because it will go so far with protecting my joints and honestly strengthening them. I think a lot of people don't realize the true benefits of strength training. I've mentioned this in a past podcast episode, but strength training does wonders with your mental health, your sleep, your joints. So many things improve when you actually are consistent with strength training. Next, I want to talk about your immune system. And a lot of what I just said impacts your immune system, right? Sleep impacts your immune system. Strength training also impacts your immune system. Your nutrition, of course, impacts your immune system. But specifically, I wanted to highlight zinc. I've talked about zinc before. I love zinc. I've been making sure that I integrate zinc into my routine on a daily basis because zinc is a very, very, very powerful vitamin. Next to vitamin C, it is one of the most powerful vitamins for your immune system. And every single time I feel like I'm going to get sick, I just pop a Zicam little vitamin gummy and I feel so much better. I've been doing that for 2 years now and I swear by them. Also, Liquid IV has their immune support pack, which has zinc in it. And every single time I just feel a little run down or a little off with my energy, I just drink one of those and it's like I'm a brand new person. I think we as adults suppress the signals in our bodies simply because we are trying to tend to other people and other things. But it is so important as an adult to listen to the signals that our body is telling us. If we have a headache, we should probably listen to that. If we have a stomach ache, we should probably listen to that. If our eye is twitching, we should listen to that. Your body will tell you what's wrong before you finally listen. Next, we're talking about skin wellness. Skin wellness is very important to me. From the girl who had horrible skin growing up, I had cystic acne. You would never know now, but yes, I had cystic acne and I just didn't know what to do with my skin. It was the worst feeling ever to just know that there was an internal issue with what was going on in my skin. And I really committed to figuring it out as an adult. But before we get into the internal workings of skin health and skin wellness, I first want to talk about the items that a lot of people overlook when it comes to skin health. So the first and foremost item is your water and electrolyte intake. Water is essentially food for your skin. When you are parched, your skin will also show it. If you have super dry skin, it is probably because you are not drinking enough water. I have committed to trying to drink 6 or 7 glasses of water every single day. I just put that all into my water bottle, which is about a 40-ounce container. So I try to fill that up a few times a day to make sure that I'm hitting my water goal. Having a good, solid skincare routine is also extremely important with your overall skin wellness. I have talked about my full skincare routine in past episodes, so I'm not going to dive in too much, but essentially just making sure that you have a good cleanser, you exfoliate twice a week, you have a good moisturizer, and you are using vitamin C serum. Those are really your holy grail. That's really all you need for a solid skincare routine. And then of course, consistency. You have to be doing this every single day to actually get the results. If you do all that stuff and you are still experiencing not so great skin, there's probably an internal issue happening, and it's mostly linked to your hormones. And this is exactly what happened with me. I was doing all the right things with my water intake and my skincare routine, but there was still something happening under the surface. So I ended up going to a dermatologist who took a deeper look at my skin, and she prescribed me tretinoin, dapsone, and spironolactone, which I still take all those 3 to this day. And that really worked from within to make sure that I am actually left with really, really clear skin. And I'm so, so thankful that there are, of course, medicine to target these issues. And all those 3 medicines I said, you can only get those with a dermatologist prescription. But that is exactly what I specifically needed for my skin to actually see the results that I wanted. Next is relationship wellness. This is one that is often overlooked. We need to look into our relationships, friends, family, whoever is close to us, and we have to assess whether they are healthy. This involves honest, deep conversations with the people around you. For me, it's really important to nurture my friendships and my relationships with the people who I want in my life. And I think this is important to be said as well. I fully believe that everybody needs deep level connections in their life. So this is outside of your surface level acquaintances, the day-to-day interactions that you have with people. It's so important for everybody to have deep level connections in their life. And if you don't have them, that should be a priority in your life to go seek them out. This is coming from a girl who has been traumatized by past friendships, traumatized with family drama, but I still make it a priority to deepen the relationships with the people who I care about because it is very important to have human connection. A few ways that I found deepening relationships very helpful is sending a voice note to people when you think about them. It's such an easy way to let someone know how you feel about them and also maintain a consistent form of communication. You can also text someone when you see something that reminds you of them. I personally love voice notes, so I would defer to a voice note. But overall, just making the people in your life who you value a priority goes a very long way with deepening relationships with other people. Next is sexual wellness. As adults, a lot of people don't understand the value of sexual wellness. And no, this doesn't mean to go hook up with anybody who you see. That's not what we're talking about here. Sexual wellness, personally, I believe starts from within. You don't need a partner to maintain sexual wellness. Of course, the obvious, doing routine checkups when you do, of course, become intimate with other people and hook up with other people. But outside of the routine checkups, I think it's really important to be open with your needs and what you want from either someone else or yourself. Over the years, with all of the sexual encounters I've had, I have been very vocal with the things that I need to feel fulfilled and the things that I need to feel pleased. Once upon a time, I was not like that, and I didn't feel satisfied, and I didn't understand why people enjoyed it until I decided to speak up, say what I like, say what I wanted. And when it comes to self-pleasure, it's really important to set the scene for yourself. Create an environment that helps you feel relaxed and ready to sink into yourself. This could be lighting candles in the space. This could be reading an erotic book. This could mean a few different things. Use your imagination, of course. It's important to mentally and spatially set the tone for getting to an arousal state. As an adult who has been celibate for over 6 months, this is something that means a lot to me, actually. Really want to remind myself that self-pleasure is extremely important, especially for this time period of my life where I am not wanting to sleep around and I'm not wanting to just hook up with people just for the physical enjoyment. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, and that is exactly why sexual wellness is on this list. It is a very important part of wellness, especially for females. We need to remember that we do not need a partner. We do not need a man to take care of us in that way. Yes, it is fun and it is exciting. I know. I get it. However, we can do it for ourselves, and that self-sufficiency is very much tied to the health and wellness of us. Next, I want to talk about financial wellness. This is a topic I actually want to definitely dive more into on future episodes of the podcast. So by the time you're listening to this episode, I have already posted my YouTube video about my monthly budget in New York City and how I make my life still so fruitful and so fun and so eventful with the budget I decided to have, which was $2,500. And in New York City, a lot of people can think that is a small budget, but like I said, it's actually so doable and it works for me. When I made that budget, it definitely started to also make me think about my financial wellness as a whole, understanding that budgeting is a very important and very normal part of adulthood, and everyone should be, of course, budgeting. And over the years, I've also been very good on not succumbing to overconsumption. We're definitely in a day and age where overconsumption is the norm, and I don't subscribe to that. I don't love that, so I try not to buy into that as well. For financial wellness, I also wanted to talk about paying bills and the different expenses that most adults have, which are student loans, credit card. I personally pay my bills in chunks, which is manageable for me. That also helps me feel less stressed out about money. I personally don't love the idea of paying multiple $1,000s on bills every single month when I don't have to. That is why paying bills in chunks is a very smart way to live. Another important financial wellness practice that I have always done, but I'm doing it more and more, is regularly checking my bank statement. So I actually was on the phone with my bank yesterday for almost an hour because there was a charge that I did not authorize. So they had to file a claim and reverse that amount of money. Definitely make sure to be hyper aware of every single line item on your bank statements, because who knows, there could be something that you did not sign off on. Of course, all of us experience filing our taxes, and we're actually coming up on the deadline for filing taxes. I have been using TurboTax for 7 years now, and I love that they have experts who you can hire to fully take care of everything. That is what I've been doing for the past 3 years when I started my LLC, because there are a lot of nuances that I don't know. And also, they help you save money. That is their job, to look for the tax breaks and look for certain schedules and all the jargon that we don't know. So it is definitely wise to make an appointment in person or online with a tax expert to really walk you through everything that they're doing. And for me, those are very helpful to start learning more about the process, to actually see where my money is going. I think it is important to know where exactly your money is going. I also wanted to throw in a credit hack in case anybody has ever worried about their credit score. I learned about level credit 4 years ago now. I had used it to report my rent payments, my phone bill, and my utilities payments. If you didn't know, those are all components that can increase your credit score. Another item I highly recommend people doing is make a sit-down meeting with your bank advisors, which is essentially the people who sit in the cubicles at your bank. This is a free service that you can take advantage of. I have been doing this for about 3 years now. Ever since I moved to New York City, I sat with my Bank of America reps, and they go through my account. They go through what exactly I can do with the money I have in my savings. They also help me learn a lot more about investing, which is a sector of life that I do want to learn more about. Transparently, don't know that much about investing, and I want to gain more knowledge about it. Going to your bank advisors is a really good first step to learning more about investing. They know so much more than we do, and they are such a great resource. Next is intellectual wellness. This one is one of my favorite ones on this list because I am such a nerd. I geek out over random facts and I love learning new things. And as an adult, I have really felt compelled to learn as much as I can about things that I don't know that much about. Reading has been such a great way to gain more intellect. I have made it a point to try to read every single day, even if it's only for 30 minutes. I still believe that practice is very much improving my reading comprehension. I'm learning so many new vocab words. It makes me a lot more eloquent and it's fun. Reading, of course, also boosts your mental stimulation and your cognitive function, which is, of course, very, very important as we age. Other items I'd like to do to improve my intellectual wellness are reading Substack articles, listening to TED Talks, filling out crossword puzzles. I love filling out the New York Times crossword puzzle. I've now done 3 different ones. They're tough, but they really make me think. And again, call me a nerd, but I love when my mind is actively working. Next is spiritual wellness. And I think this is probably the one on the list that no one really thinks about, but this is a very important component to your overall wellness. And of course, this really only applies if you are a spiritual person. And this is going outside of the traditional religion. Growing up, I was Catholic. This is another topic I haven't really broached on Misunderstood, but I do want to talk about it more in the future. But I did grow up Catholic, and I had this moment of realization when I went to college that I didn't really connect with religion in the traditional sense. And it was mainly because I just did it because my parents told me to, rather than what I really felt within myself. So I haven't been to church in a very, very long time. Been thinking about the other items of spirituality that I feel really pulled to. I am very, very big on law of attraction, manifestation. I've talked about that a lot on the podcast. And I feel like there are a lot of very spiritual aspects about that. And a lot of you see me wearing this necklace every single episode, but this is 111, which is my angel number. I fully believe that your angel number picks you. You don't pick your angel number. I have been seeing 111 since I was a kid everywhere. And if you didn't know, 111 is for intuition. And my intuition is rock solid, killer. I feel things so deeply. And I felt that way ever since I was a kid. So that is a part of spirituality that I became very connected to. And then I started to learn so much about what angel numbers mean and what manifestation means and what the universe means. These were all very important to me. And I fully believe that spirituality is a journey that you have to go on for yourself. No one can hand you a specific type of spirituality. You have to find that for yourself. So mine is absolutely angel numbers and learning about how that impacts my life. The next one is work wellness. As an adult, we spend a lot of our time, actually the majority of our day-to-day, we are spending working in some capacity to, of course, live the life we live. So your work wellness needs to be a priority as well. For this one, I like to ask the question, do you actually like what you are doing? And I want to be clear that with work, a lot of people have this mindset of you are just doing this specific work as a means to an end. And if that works for you, I'm not here to tell you otherwise. However, in terms of a pocket of life that you are spending significant time on, I personally would rather have you enjoy your day-to-day. So if there is any component of your job that you can tweak to make it so that you actually find enjoyment in it, I would explore that. Another component about work wellness that everyone should think about is, are you growing and are you expanding? Are you learning new things? Do you feel stagnant? Do you feel like you are not leveling up? I believe these are all very important questions to ask yourself when it comes to what you do for work. And then lastly, for work wellness is your work-life balance. Like I said, we do spend the majority of our time working, of course, but we don't live to work. We work to live. Working is simply a vehicle to make sure that we can fund the lifestyle that we have. Having a balance on work and life is extremely important. I was in corporate accounting for 3.5 years, and then I started to work for myself, and I've been doing that ever since. And I did not have a work-life balance when I was in corporate accounting. And even now, being in charge of my own schedule and working for myself for almost 6 years now, I have struggled with work-life balance because I've had to make my own schedule and I've had to have the discipline to make sure that I am not putting all of my life into work. But that journey has been really fruitful, and finding that balance in work has honestly contributed to my overall wellness. And last but not least is emotional and mental wellness. So technically we could have put both of these in separate buckets, but I do want to talk about both of them here. So for your mental wellness, which I like to think about mental health, I have been to therapy collectively for 3.5 years since 2019. And that did wonders for my mental health. And it honestly was such a big component to having the emotional depth, and the healing that I've been able to do is definitely attributed to therapy. I understand therapy is expensive. I was really thankful that I was able to get a lot of it covered through my old employer, but there are cost-effective options to finding therapy. BetterHelp is actually a lot cheaper than people think. And actually now they take most insurances, whereas they didn't for the longest time. So I would highly recommend looking into BetterHelp if you are ready to start your therapy journey. And for emotional wellness, I think it's also very important to talk about your emotional regulation. You looking inward and understanding how you react emotionally to whatever happens to you. I have always grown up being a little bit of a hothead, and it is directly because of how I was raised. And I've been able to effectively regulate my emotions based on how I feel. And it's really been such a game changer with how I approach relationships, how I approach different situations, knowing that most of the things that happen are not that serious and I do not have to get so worked up about them. But it does take time, and it does take you actively putting it into practice. Digital boundaries and breaks has also really helped with my mental and emotional wellness. And what I mean by this is full on taking pockets of time to not be on social media, whether it be a day or a week. Just not really being on certain platforms has really, really helped with my mental health. And then while on said platforms, I always have boundaries. It's very, very important to have boundaries, especially online, because remember, these are people who we do not know personally. So it's even more important to have boundaries set. And I have a ton of boundaries. I will block anybody who is out of line. One strike, you're out. That is how I've always been. And that is how it will stay. And lastly, I wanted to talk about inner child work. It's so important to connect with your inner child. Even as adults, I think it's actually even more important to connect with your inner child, because as kids, that was our purest form, and we really explored all of our interests, and we did it so unapologetically. And for me, a few really integral parts of my childhood were coloring, listening to nostalgic music, and my style. Being able to experiment with my style as an adult has been so fun, playing with color, playing with patterns, coloring in coloring books, but also painting, watercoloring, crayons, markers. Those are all forms of coloring, and it's been so soothing to do that as an adult. And then, of course, all the nostalgic music that I grew up loving and listening to in the early 2000s, I make sure to play them actually pretty regularly because it makes me smile every single time. It makes me smile so big because I just think back to me being a kid, loving all of these forms of entertainment that were honestly so pure. Taking care of your emotional and mental wellness is deeply important. It's something that we often forget, but it is very, very important to understanding us and taking care of ourselves. These are all very, very important to me, which is why I wanted to make an episode about it. I really wanted to shine a light on a few items that I actually have never talked about on the podcast. But as a lot of you guys know, there is space for everything on this podcast. Wellness is such an important topic. It's such a buzzword in media, but when we peel back the layers, it's such an important topic that we really need to put at the forefront. It is about taking care of you, which is, of course, as always, your highest priority. And with that, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Misunderstood. Make sure to rate the podcast 5 stars on Apple and Spotify and follow it wherever you're listening. Join our Geneva group chat. It is always linked in the description of every single podcast episode. Hang out with me on my other socials, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest at NK Madani. And I will talk to you guys in the next one.